Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Terran News Network, your most trusted source for news in the Terran Republic. Our main story tonight is about the return of the First Fleet after a successful first campaign in the GL Virginis system, where they destroyed dozens of hostile alien ships and only disengaged because they ran out of ammo and returned to the jump point to make their way back to Earth to rearm and resupply. The Navy has announced plans for new ammunition transports to ensure that this doesn't happen again in the future. The Navy also announced that the only losses suffered during this campaign were a handful of drone-controlled fighter craft. That is all for this special news report from Terran News Network, voted the most trusted source for news in the Terran Republic. If we're not talking about it, it's not important. Glory to the Republic, and we will see you next time. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Let's Play Aurora 4X C#. So, last time we had our first real military engagement. As far as the news will report it was an absolute resounding success in which the enemies took heavy losses, and the only reason that we ran away, or well, not ran away, but disengaged, was because we ran out of ammo. That is half-truth, which is better than a complete lie, I suppose. So yes, in reality, however, it did not quite go as planned, but it wasn't a disaster either. Yes, we lost our fighters. It's not the end of the world. We will survive and we will rebuild. It does not take long to rebuild fighters, so we will be okay. We are, however, looking into designing, technically it's already happened, some brand new missiles. If we pull up our missile here, we have the brand new AIM 50s, which are going to be going on to our strike fighters. They have a range of, well, 50 million kilometers. It's quite excessive, admittedly, for a size 4 missile, but our missile fire control has a range of 56 million. So why not? Why not give our strike fighters the ability to launch missiles at an absolutely stupid range, to the point where hopefully the enemy is not capable of engaging us? Our main worry is going to be that it's obvious the enemy has point defense. How do we handle that? Well, the obvious way is to just overwhelm the point defense. But we don't know how much point defense the enemy has, so how exactly do you overwhelm something that you don't know how much exists? And this is one of the drawbacks of the Akagi series of carriers. They do not carry all that many strike fighters. As a reminder, they only carry 10 strike fighters. Although actually that's not true, because this needs to be updated to reflect that it's no longer the FA-1s you're supposed to be equipped with, it's the FA-2s. But it's still 10, nonetheless. Each strike fighter carries 6 missile launchers for this iteration. Technically, the ones that we lost were only carrying 5 missiles, because they did not update and rearm to take into account that they're supposed to have a 6th launcher. So they were just refusing to rearm no matter what I tried to do. So, whatever, we'll survive. But so that is a total of 60 missiles being fired if we fire, simultaneously. The other option of what we can do is, well, not other option, but another thing we need to do is the range. So another thing we designed is our brand new our RIM 8100s. These are our size 8 missiles with 100 million kilometers of range. Why 100 million? Again, I don't know why the game did that. I wasn't trying to edit this at all, but whatever. Our missile fire control has a range of 177 million. Why we only did 100? because anything more than that I think was a little bit not really worth the trade-off, particularly in terms of speed and fuel. One of the things we want is a missile to be fast enough to make its way through any area defense, point defense, that the enemy may have. So as a result of this, we sort of had to plan around that. Now, one thing I'm wondering regarding our cruisers is, do they just not have the right beam fire control for point defense? That's a very real possibility that they don't. And that would be on me if that is the case. But as far as I know, beam fire controls don't have, resolutions. So I don't know why they were failing to fire unless it's because of their tracking. Which also, to me, does not make much sense because they're Resolution 1 sensors, and they have their own Resolution 1 sensors, have more range at 19 million kilometers than the actual weapons, which only have about 360,000. So they should have been engaging in area defense. Luckily, we have more than sufficient Gauss cannons to be able to basically destroy most missiles that are of a reasonable salvo size that the enemy is launching. So we're able to survive. But nonetheless, we had to back off because we ran out of our anti-missile missiles, and it wasn't quite worth attempting to close the distance to be able to fire our current missiles with their 46 million kilometers. We would have taken a few too many shots for my liking. But this time around, we should be, well, I say this time, next time around, we should be much better equipped because we are going to be upgrading and replacing the ordnance on these with the brand new ones. In the meantime, we are also going to be getting out some ammunition transports. How many ammunition transports? Well, the reality is, while I have not finalized the design on a size 20 missile, although we do have a base concept design for a cruiser, I have not, like I said, finalized the actual design. You are not supposed to be researching that, and I don't know why you are. But I guess it's fine. The reality is I will do that maybe. If I actually use this design, it's fine. Size 20 box launchers won't change at all. But this is our theoretical size 20 missile. It is slow as all hell. It has stupid amount of range. I can realistically probably cut that down to 100 and gain some speed without any real drawbacks. About 10,000 kilometers of speed. The big thing is that I decided, we're not going to be able to fire too many of these all at once because I don't really plan to build many of these Algiers if we're going to do them. So, although I say that, of course, obviously, if I use the box launchers, we can launch a stupid amount of them, and I can load up a fair few of these onto an ammunition transport, because this ammunition transport in particular has a magazine of 3,840. That is a absolute boatload of missiles that can be loaded onto a single transport. I say a boatload. I mean, it's a fair few. It's 192. A single ammunition transport can have 3 full reloads of size 20 missiles and have a little bit extra left over for one final salvo. The big thing is that the amount of time it'll take to transfer the ammo. That's going to be our problem. We have a 100 ms per hour ordnance transfer system. And using an ordnance transfer system, you can only reload a single ship at a time. If I wanted to be able to load multiple ships at a time, I would have to use a ordnance transfer hub, which is 100,000 tons. that will significantly increase the size of the ship. So we're not going to do that. Instead, what we're going to do right now, actually, is completely reconsider our research priorities for a variety of reasons. We don't really need the shipbuilding rate. We can cancel that project for now. It's not important. Let's get the brand new AIM 450 out. Maximum orbital mining diameter? Don't care for that. Let's get the RIM 8100 going. Turret tracking speed? Not important right this second. So we're going to back off on that. Next thing we need to look into. I went ahead and designed some new Marines. Are we necessarily going to use these guys right now? I am admittedly not fully certain. But I have designed them. The big thing we're also going to want to research is underway replenishment rate. Because an ordnance transfer system, and an ordnance transfer hub as well, cannot resupply at a rate of 100%, or at its full transfer rate, in the case of our current ones, 100 MSP per hour, while underway. Instead, you will use the underway replenishment rate, which our current version is 30%. So we will resupply at 30 MSP an hour. Well, with the size 20 missile, that means I'd only basically get one, maybe depending upon which hour tick we're on, 2 every hour. With our size 8 missiles, obviously that goes up fairly significantly. But nonetheless, it's kind of slow, and this is a relatively cheap tech to research. So we're going to go ahead and dump points into this, get our underway replenishment rate up higher. Another thing we're considering is legitimately getting out an intelligence ship. This would be a ship that, well, its primary purpose is exactly as the name describes. It is a ship intended to head out and try to gain ELINT, electronic intelligence, on the enemy. But of course, our ELINT modules are kind of outdated. They're strength 11. Our current, sensor tech, when it comes to our passives, are at sensitivity 24. These are like 3-4 levels out of date. So they don't have much range. They do stack, but they're 500 tons each. You don't really want an intelligence ship to be massive, so we're trying to cut it down as much as possible, which means the only obvious thing I can do to improve the range is to get a better ELINT module. So that's another thing that we're already sort of researching we probably want this. But yeah, it's definitely something we're going to want. But the reality is that is 2 years out, and I do not expect the next GL Virginis campaign to happen in over 2 years. So yeah. Let me go ahead and get my timer started, because I haven't actually had it going at all for those like 12, almost 13 minutes now that I was talking. But yes, so that is something we're going to need to deal with, is trying to not finalize, but, get this stuff up to where we want it to be. And it's mostly going to be waiting to get the technology. Or not the technology, but the shipyards built up, and then obviously building the actual buildings. Or not buildings, but the actual ships, rather. Since you don't have anything else really worth researching, Kumari, you can return to researching the shipbuilding with the one lab that you have at your disposal. Because I do not have anybody else who has spare capacity. Another thing that I did between parts was try to sort of guesstimate the enemy's sensor tech. It's not fully accurate in any way. Because let's be real here, I just don't have the information. I know their gravity sensor tech, and I know their EM sensitivity, due in part to us having captured one design. Yay. However, the only information we know for certain is that and the GPS, which is gravitational pulse strength. Basically, the sensor strength when your active sensors are turned on for the sake of detection by passive sensors like EM sensors. So this AS8, as it's referred to, matches the sensor for the for what we got on the one ship we captured. So we can reasonably safely assume that it's probably the same sensor. In which case it is an active gravity strength sensor 21. We estimate it's a size, well, I say estimate, in this case it's not really an estimate. We know it's a size 9 because we captured the ship. Unless the AS8 is actually a completely different sensor that just happens to have like the same characteristics, namely the same GPS. It's presumably the same thing, a size 9 sensor, giving it a resolution of 118. Using all this information combined with EM sensitivity, we can estimate a range of 126.2, which seems to match, again, the ship that we captured. Now, I don't know if these other things are all size 9s. I have no way of knowing that. I assume they are for the sake of simplicity, but the reality is I highly doubt the enemies are using size 9 sensors for every single one of their sensor suites. Also, it should also be noted that a resolution of 118 is actually physically impossible for us as the player, which would indicate that the AI uses a slightly different component design system than us, the player. Because for us, the player, the resolution goes from 115 to 120. It is physically impossible to do a 118, as far as I can tell. So, yeah. So, again, we can kind of guesstimate this information to an extent based off what we know, but it's kind of hard to be in any way accurate because I kind of doubt that a GPS of 189 is a size 9 sensor, even with a resolution of 1. I highly doubt that this is actually it. It's probably a smaller sensor. Hell, it might not even be a gravity strength 21 for all I know. I just assume they're all 21 because it's the easiest thing to work with math-wise. So until I have information to the contrary, we just assume that they're all 21. Makes life easy. So let's head off back to GL Virginis and watch as we stabilize the jump point over here and can bring the fleet back to Earth for a triumphant arrival, welcoming, all of that jazz. Because as far as we're concerned, you know, they did it. This was a successful campaign. And that is exactly how it will be presented in the news, is as a successful campaign. That's relatively cheap tech. Let's just go ahead and get that going and get it out of there so it's not cluttering our screen, basically. Also, one thing I wanted to check, who is in charge of the first fleet, just so I know for, you know, potential references, especially because I also will probably be giving you a medal because we need to sell the story that this was a successful campaign. So it would be Virginia de Rosa is the rear admiral, lower half, in charge of the, well, in charge of Carrier Strike Group 1. Technically speaking, Helen Imazlova, however it's pronounced, is in charge of the First Fleet. So you will get a medal, the Carrier Strike Group will get a medal, and the Assault Carrier Group will get a medal. The Expeditionary Strike Group, because they technically never left Earth orbit, because why would they? It's not that long of a journey, so you might as well not send them out until after we've secured the area. It'd be one thing if it was like a year-long journey or something. Sure, I'd have sent them out earlier, but it's no point. Okay, that is better sensor cloaking. Let's get those going as well, because those are helpful for our intelligence ship. And now we need to get the brand new missiles going for production. So I want, we're just going to go stupid on this and say I want 2,000 of these. And I want 2,000 of those as well. We also need to go and obsolete the current ones because we are not planning to build those anymore. Also need to build 10 more of these guys to replace the 10 that got lost. Also need to update your ordnance to say carry these instead. You're supposed to carry those. Okay, there we go. That has all been updated. Now we continue on. Yeah, our guys are going to be having some problems because of, well, just maintenance. While they're sitting out here, but they'll survive. It's not that long, and they should have, I think it's like 3 years for some of these guys. Wonderful. We actually just got the research rate tech. That'll speed things up significantly. Now, luckily, it does seem like the enemies are just not bothering to come out here for us. So we'll be able to make our strategic withdrawal without any issues. We would obviously have potentially problems if the enemy had attempted to push out. But they have very clearly decided against that. How long is that journey? Only about 20 days. Yeah, it's really not. So, that's a good and a bad thing in a sense. That GL Virginis is not that far away. And, okay, they are coming out with something. I'm thinking they've decided to take this opportunity, figuring that, hey, the jump point's open. Let's go ahead, or, has been stabilized on this side. This is the reason why I didn't want to stabilize the jump point. I had hoped that we'd be able to waltz in here, destroy them, and then leave. But unfortunately, because of the fact that that is not how things are going to work, they are on their way to the jump point, presumably. Probably to try to come out and attack us. Which means having the joyous job of dealing with that. Mars, again, has a stupid amount of freaking supplies on it. Why? Why is Mars just failing miserably at sending its stuff to Earth? No, it's because the game is still failing to give you the mass driver for some reason. Like, I have one available. Oh, apparently I did not update the supply here, I guess? Maybe? I don't know. Let's try correcting that. In theory, Venus should not be having problems sending out all of its materials, but it seems to not be quite doing it. It might be because it's still cleaning up after the last time it was over, maybe. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, they're definitely heading for the jump point. They're completely ignoring this guy. Probably because they don't pick him up on passives because he's so damn slow. What with, I think, not even a single engine working. Yeah, all three of his magnetoplasma engines are busted. He is out of supply points, or maintenance supply, basically, yes. So, yeah, he's just kind of trying to limp to the jump point. Yeah, he's not going to be successful, but they are definitely heading for the jump point. So what I need to do is... Oh, God, that is a fair few ships. Our other option is to engage them as soon as they jump through the jump point, basically. I don't think the AI is smart enough to exploit jumping back and forth between jump points, but also to an extent, I believe that is kind of what jump shock is supposed to prevent as well, to an extent. But theoretically, I think it's still exploitable. But something we could do, if we wanted to, is determine that, okay, the enemy will jump in at the jump point. We can engage them at a range within 46 million kilometers with our missiles. We can at least destroy some ships. In which case, I'd probably want to engage them at about 40 million just to maximize the insurance that they will be in our active sensors, although, that we can fire on them. So, you know what? I think that's what we're going to end up doing. So, Carrier Strike Group 1, there has been a change of plans. You are to move to Waypoint 1 and engage the enemy as they come through the jump point to at least try to do some damage. Although, admittedly, those first ships that we detected, and I probably should have moved you much sooner because those first ships we detected are probably almost at, or might even have already gone through. But at the very least, we should detect them once we get up there. But they are bringing the whole fleet, it looks like, which is not going to be a fun time for us. So now what we're going to do is we're not picking them up at all. Now it's possible they don't jump through. That's a very real possibility. They just decide, no, we're just going to fly here and then just kind of stand around. Do I think that's what they're going to do? No, not at all. But theoretically, they could. The reality is, with our active sensors, we should have no trouble detecting them. So if they do come through, okay, question is, which way are you guys heading? You guys are heading away from the jump point. Which begs the question that maybe you decided not to go through it. Which, if that is the case, I'm confused as to the thought process. But that is a possibility, because you guys definitely should have already come through if you were going to. And I would have definitely detected you if you were going to. So we don't exactly have a lot of excuses for not detecting you. Or not having had this opportunity to engage you. And the only logical conclusion is that you did not come through. Also, one thing we technically should have done a couple months back, actually, like at the start of this part, more or less, is run a brand new election. So let's update this. Bunch of spoil votes this time, apparently. Unformatted text. Oh, whoops. We're going to consider those first results are, in fact, this here. Now it's just to check the chancellor election, which, yep, you need to be kicked off. And in this case, that means Truman Siegel is the new ruler. From the Federalist Party as a civilian leader. Okay, I think we're safe to have you come back to Earth now, because it seems like they're not choosing to come through. Or, excuse me, it seems like they're choosing not to come through. Yep, got a shortage of calcite, but that's partly because Mars is holding on to 15,000 of it. For whatever reason. I don't know why. Unload all. Refuel, resupply at Earth. Just do it once. Presumably that's enough. But we can double check that. Yes, it is. That means Earth now has 15,000 more units. Still waiting on the naval shipyards. That is our minimum cloak size, which again is a helpful tech for our intelligence ship once we get that out. That's going to be a little bit because it's not an immediate rush. Anything else to research? Not really. So, continue with that. That scout ship is continuing to prove useful. Lalande. I think somebody had to still refit their escorts, I thought. Yes. Who has those escorts? Alpha Centauri. I didn't realize Alpha Centauri was in this group, but apparently they are. Okay. Okay, yeah, Lalande can head out. Which is good, because Lalande is corundium and mercasium, but I don't really care too much for the mercasium. It's more so the corundium. We use a fair bit of that. This can be retooled to the assault shuttle. Even though this is going to be almost immediately replaced, we're still going to update the ordnance transfer system. Now, I don't know, did ordnance transfer systems stack? Like, if I have 3, does that allow me to refuel 3 ships, or does it not matter? I've never really used ammo transports because I've never really gotten this far in the game for the most part. It's mostly just because I've run into errors sometimes with the install, I guess. And you usually end up needing to start from scratch to get around them. So yeah, I don't know if ordnance transfer systems stack. And of course, saying this, by the time this video goes up, I'll be well past this. So it's, I mean, feel free to leave a comment because I'm probably not going to test it. But, you know, if you know the answer to that, please feel free to let me know because it could be relevant for the future. And I can incorporate it into future designs. But if it does stack, then we may want to have multiple of these. And when I say stack, I don't mean stack as in improving the transfer speed to a single ship. But if it allows me to sort of do a makeshift hub, then having an ordnance transfer system is nice. But that's the thing, is I don't know if like having 3 would allow me to resupply 3 different ships. Or if, as far as the game is concerned, oh no, ordnance transfer systems are still only 1-to-1. It doesn't matter how many you have. And adding more also probably won't stack and increase the speed of transfers to a single ship. That's the thing that I don't know the answer to. But depending upon that answer is useful information. Oh, I forgot to hand out the medal. I think we'll do it as a mention in dispatch. So, Naval Admin Commander. Mentioned dispatches. Medal. Mentioned in dispatches. Fleet commanders, ship commanders, executive officers, commander air group, chief engineers, tactical science, all of those guys. Whoops. Carrier Strike Group 1, award medal. Mentioned dispatches, again. All these people. Yep. Bunch of people getting medals. Because again, we need to keep up the image that it was a successful campaign. The enemy is got a bloody nose, they're lying on the floor, just hoping that we will, let them go. But they won't be allowed anything. Omega Ceti, we need to make sure that this is set as a military restricted system. It already is. Wonderful. Show me military restricted systems. Thank you very much, game. I could have sworn I already had you set to do that, but apparently I might not have. Let's see. Danger rating and naval presence affects civilian traffic. Okay. Now, I could have sworn. Go. There we go. Had to. Game doesn't do it automatically. Have to physically mark them as alien controlled systems. So, officially, those two systems are considered alien controlled. Okay, Salt Carrier Group apparently had not arrived yet. They were a bit slow. You actually need to be retooled to the brand new design. So let's get that going. A part of the issue we're going to have is that we don't actually know if the enemies are going to come through that jump point in the future. It's been stabilized, they can theoretically come through. Well, actually, so one thing I don't know is if a stabilized jump point is not, or has not been surveyed by an enemy, can they go through it? I'd assume they don't know that there's a jump point there, even if it's been stabilized, unless they've done the geospatial, survey. In which case, or is it whatever it's called? Gravitational survey. There we go. That's what I'm thinking of in this case. And so presumably if they haven't done that, they can't go through the jump point at all. Like they can fly to it, but they can't go through it, even if I've stabilized it, presumably. But I don't know if that's right. That's just my guess as to how it works. And if that is accurate, then wonderful. I need you guys to swap out your design. And Carrier Strike Group 1. How many of the missiles do we have available? We have 200, which is definitely not enough, but we can at least begin the process of replacing ordnance at Colony. Yeah, technically they're a little over 100. They're at 103 million kilometers. But it's not that big of a difference. That is 20,000. It's getting up there a little bit now, but it's still a relatively cheap technology, so we're going to get it. We're going to actually cancel that cloaking efficiency because you're not doing it particularly great. Let's continue trying to get smaller jump drive, or not jump drives, cloaking devices. Because I want to try to have the ship be as small as I can possibly make it. Okay, Quick Reaction Force 1 is having a fair bit of maintenance problems out in Size City. I think it's safe for them to come back. I think they've been there for significantly longer than they had any business being. Okay, we can begin refitting. Oops, wrong one. Refit the Albion. Costs 3,000 Galsite. Goddamn. But that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, we're going to have a Galsite issue. We already knew it, more or less, but nonetheless, we're going to have a Galsite issue. I can say that with a reasonable degree of confidence. Oh, I also need to... Okay, we finished finally with the shipyards. I need to wrong menu, carry reserves, detach. Fleets, Carrier Strike Group 1, join specified squadron, VFA 1. Wonderful. Okay, we finished with the shipyards, so I need to have one go to continual retooling of 100,000 tons, or excuse me, not 100,000 tons. I'm gonna. Does this change in size at all? No, just cost. Okay. I'm gonna have you go to a 24,000. The other one is going to go for 6,000. That is the largest I want to make the intelligence ship. I'd love for it to be 5,000 if I could, but the highest I will let it go is 6. And Murrow shipwrights, I think you might have been intended to go with the hospital ship. But that design is still a bit of a work in progress. Also, it's using commercial engines, but it's technically a military vessel, so it shouldn't be using commercial engines. Should be using those, in which case it doesn't actually have any prototyping left to do. Big thing is that efficiency is absolute garbage. Two of those 3 engines. There we go. As far as I'm concerned, that's a year. It's not really a year, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a year. Okay. I could push you out now. Let's do 2 cargo bays. You have a bridge. You don't need anything else. Because you are technically considered a military vessel for maintenance purposes, I am going to give you an ECM module, just so that you are a bit harder to hit for the enemy. Gives you a bit more protection. Not much, but something. But generally speaking, beyond that, you're going to be unarmed. Now, one thing I don't recall. Are boat bays commercial or... Because what is it that's triggering you as being commercial or military? The big thing basically is the hangar bays. We do not have commercial hangars, apparently. For some reason, I could have sworn commercial hangars were a thing. And I would have expected us to have had them, if they are. But we don't seem to see them, and it's definitely not a case that I accidentally obsoleted the design. Because otherwise it would show up here when I check obsolete. So apparently there are no commercial hangars? Really? I mean, literally there's commercial magazines. I'm shocked that there's not commercial hangars. I could have sworn there were, at least in the past, but that's always a possibility that that got changed. But yeah, I do not see that. So looks like, yeah, there are no commercial hangars. So yeah, you are, despite being a hospital ship, going to be a military vessel for the purpose of maintenance, which means I need to give you an adequate amount of maintenance supplies. Whenever I, actually get around to employing you, which is kind of the thing. Yeah. So that's going to be a bit. Unrest is rising on Psi Ceti A2 due to insufficient military protection. Yes, you guys are missing your stuff. Did we already finish the ground forces build-up on Earth? No, it's almost done. Does Earth still have any body that can go over there? I don't think it does. No, not beyond the Garrison Division. Which I could certainly move over. Wouldn't hurt, but you're almost done building a new set of STOs. So once those arrive, Psi Ceti A1 can scrap the current stuff. And we can come back. Production military academy is complete on Earth. Minimum cloak size 15 finished. It's not that expensive to go to 12, but the reality is I don't think we're going to be building a size 12 cloak until I get the cloaking efficiency much further along. Okay, now the only thing we're doing on Earth is building ordnance. Which means we do at a rate of 22,781. Which, you might think is very fast, but it really isn't. Oh, you guys already rearmed. Never mind then. Also, I'm going to need to build an absolutely stupid amount of these A14s. Considering that the ammo transport can carry almost 4,000 of them. Because they're size 1 missiles, they only take up 1 space in the magazine. So it's literally 1-to-1 for the number of missiles that the magazine can carry for these. Yeah, and what I'm probably gonna end up doing is 2 ammo transports, one carrying the A14s and one carrying the RIM 8100s. I'm not planning to have an ammo transport carry the AIM 450s for the simple reason that, what does it matter? The reality of the situation is that they're not going to run out. And if they do, we should have already basically destroyed the enemy fleet. Especially when you consider the number of RIM 8100s that are going to be able to be carried by the transports. The reality is the number we're building is still not going to be enough to actually field or to actually fill all of our needs. Technically speaking, when it comes to getting everybody equipped. So we've got a fair bit to go there. And that's basically what more or less the first term for the new president is going to end up being. Truman Siegel is going to be spent more or less saying, hey, we need to refill our stockpiles because goddamn is that shit expensive. Or, well, rather slow to build. Really, more so than anything else. Not even that it's expensive, it's just slow to build. It takes so damn long. Okay, Alpha Centauri looks to have finished its rebuild. Or its refits, rather. So you need to head to Harper, load there, Tongass, load there, then head back to Earth, refuel, resupply, and unload all minerals. Cycle those orders. For Lalande, I actually forgot to tell you to cycle your orders. Apparently. So head back to Earth real quick. And then I will correct your orders, although technically I think you were already at Earth. But nonetheless, I'm going to tell you to do it anyway. It's much easier to make sure you're at Earth and then tell you to cycle your orders than it is to tell you to cycle your orders partway through your actual orders. Are we still waiting on the ground forces to finish, or are they already done? Because I kind of feel like they should probably be done. At least for the first ones. Nope, not quite. And we are being attacked again in Saiseti. Eesh, why is the game showing me civilians here? That's absolutely annoying, game. Please don't. Actives on, go to Saiseti, head here, not follow. Move to location, go and enjoy. Yep. Now, technically, these guys could take care of it. One thing I meant to check. Alpha Centauri, did your escorts drop off their ordnance? No, they didn't. And annoyingly, again, they do not have an option for telling them to... Did I not tell you to come to Earth? Oh, no, I did. Okay, never mind. But annoyingly, they do not have an option to tell them to actually unload the ordnance, even though their ship template says they should not be carrying any because they don't have... Right, yeah. Forgot that we had to do that with these idiots. Give you an ordnance transfer. So, whoops, unlock design, ordnance transfer system. Go back to Sol. Lalande Mineral Group. Earth. Oh, is it not that? For some reason I could... Oh, no, it was... I needed you to have at least a missile launcher. That's what it was. You need to have a missile launcher. Otherwise, the game does not understand that you're technically not supposed to have missiles. If I recall correctly, it did not matter what size launcher, you just had to have one. Wonderful. Alpha Centauri, I don't know where you are in your orders. Remove, come back to Earth, refuel, resupply, unload ordnance. Expeditionary Strike Group 1. You don't have an escort, which is not the greatest. Also, apparently one of your guys is injured. Probably been meaning to fix that. I just kind of forgot. Let's get that repair done first. Not an immediate rush to get the new STOs to Saiseti. I mean, it kind of is, but it also kind of isn't. Okay, repair completed. Where are you? Gotta find you again. There you are. Earth. Load ground. Oh, whoops. Load ground units. 27th and god damn it, game. 28th orbital defense teams. Go to Syseti. Double check which Syseti. I believe it was A2. That is indeed correct. Syseti A2. Unload all units from transport bay. Head back to Earth. Wonderful. That has been corrected. Relock that design. Now you can actually go through with the orders you originally had. Also, you know what, while you're here, go ahead and just unload the minerals you do have. Okay, now again, you can go and actually do the orders you had. Unload all. Refuel, resupply, cycle orders. That gets us a tiny bit about more galsite to, you know, survive while we're doing. Let's get the salvage fleet out here to Syseti to pick up these wreckages. That'll also get us a few more minerals. Again, the main thing we need is galsite. We don't have good deposits of galsite, and galsite is such an important resource in this game. You use it for your engines, and as a result, you also use it for your missiles. Because what is a missile beyond an explosive strapped to an engine? And technically that is accurate. A missile and a rocket are technically nothing more than an engine with an explosive strapped to it. Or an explosive strapped to an engine. Just depends on a matter of perspective, really, but the point still generally stands that it is very basic. Scrap the 17th and 18th because they are just far too damaged to be usable. And so much so that it's easier to just replace them outright than it is to try to reinforce them. If this game's ground forces system was very similar to like a Paradox game, where you just kind of said, stand here in a territory where you have enough supply, and you'll magically resupply your troops, sure, I'd have no problem doing it that way, but that's not the way this game works, so that is not how we do it. Okay, we technically only need an admin rating of 1 to fill over here. Now, the thing I'm going to look for is somebody who's really good at mining, somebody who is really good at terraforming, really good at shipbuilding, and really good at production to take over. Also, I don't know why we have an admin rating level of 10 option here, considering that it seems to max out at 9. Maybe it's just me, but that seems kind of silly. Samantha Poog here is good at mining and good at production, not so much the terraforming and shipbuilding, which don't really matter in that order. Realistically, I think production, then shipbuilding, then terraforming are more important, all things considered, in which case, Samantha, you're good for the job. There you go. Baldwin Steel Company is going to take a while to get to where they need to be. Expeditionary Strike Group 1 has arrived. We're getting free research into our cloak efficiency as a result of the stuff we're salvaging. We just got a free 1,200 points into that. Didn't get any other ones. Albion finished the refit. Wonderful. Question is, do I actually bother refitting the assault shuttles right now, because they don't really matter? God, is it really going to take you like a month to do a refit like this? It really shouldn't. They're not that freaking big. Let's get some slipways added, particularly for the fighters, but I would like to have 2 slipways for the intelligence ship. That'll speed things up quite a bit, because I think I want 2 of them. %90 cloak sensor reduction. We want to get the, particularly for these. In fact, you know what? I can sort of show off what the design would look like with the new tech that we've got for this. So the current one is this, and let's just kind of rebuild it as it is. Doesn't quite seem right. There we go. So this is basically what we have right now. Cloak efficiency 4, cloak sensor reduction 80% with a size 30 cloaking device. This allows me to have a max ship size of 6,000 tons. Let's hide all that. And this brings us from a TCS, or target cross section, basically the size of your ship for the sake of detection with active sensors, of 85 down to 24. This, to my knowledge, is basically, simplest way to describe it, the resolution that the sensor has to be at to be able to detect you at max range. So the enemy would need a resolution 24 sensor to be able to detect our current intelligence ship design at whatever their max range is. And then, of course, anything lower resolution would be able to detect it as well. So technically, this is the highest the resolution needs to be able to detect at the max range. A size 20 or a resolution 23 sensor would also be able to detect us at its max range, but its max range would be shorter than the 24. This means that I can get even closer to the enemy. Something I could add to our active sensor calculator here would be basically a this is the max range that a sensor of certain level would be able to detect me with. Because the information I need is sensor strength, resolution, or size actually as well, which is kind of a problem because again, we can only guesstimate that. Resolution and EM sensitivity. So I could technically add on to here what kind of range would they be able to detect me at calculator? Which I might do, maybe, between parts. But nonetheless, this is the design as it stands right now. Obviously, however, we can kick this up to 90% now. And if we prototype this, that takes us from a 24 down to 12. I could then say, oh, well, I don't technically need to be this size anymore. Do I? No, actually I do, because we have not improved our efficiency yet. That'll be happening in January of this upcoming year. Or we can make it December instead. Now, in that case, that would allow me to have a 1,200 ton sensor, or a cloaking device rather, and still be 6,000. That's 300 tons shaved off. 300 tons that I can then use for other things, and I don't know what. That could be fuel, engineering, or maintenance related stuff. Because maybe slap a full-size ECM on there instead of the compact. Which is probably what I'd end up doing. And I can still, as a result, have a slightly smaller ship. A 5,700 ton ship, thereabouts. More like 58, actually, once you take into account swapping out the ECM for the ECM5 instead of the compact ECM4. But nonetheless, the basic principle is that the ship will be a couple hundred tons smaller, which will further decrease this TCS. Probably not significantly. 300 tons probably doesn't really make a significant difference. Well, again, it's more like 200, 250, something in that range. Technically does not make a significant difference, but it does still help, in theory. But yeah, the smaller that I can get this, the more efficient our intelligence ship will be. And, if I could improve our ELINT module to a strength 14, that would be helpful. I believe that the ELINT module is basically a resolution 1 sensor, I'm pretty sure. Yes. It is, or excuse me, a size 1 sensor of that sensitivity. So we could go from 26.2 million kilometers range on a 1,000 strength signature up to 29.5, technically 25.6 when you take into account rounding. Which is probably fine. Realistically, I think that will just barely get us outside of range, potentially. Or at least we'd be like at the edges of their range. And when you take into account that our experiences with the Raiders is that cloaking modules seem to also affect the ability to fire at distance. Because you'll remember, when we try to use missiles on enemy or on the Raider ships, if their ship has a cloaking device, we've needed to close the distance quite significantly. While if they don't have a cloaking device, we've been able to fire at them more or less at max range. So they may not be able to quite fire their missiles at us, even with this ship as it stands. But I would kind of like to get all the advantages we can in our favor, and we've got the time. It's going to take us a while to rebuild. Or not rebuild, but to replace all of our ordnance with the brand new iterations. But that is going to be it for this part. I will see you all next time, where we will be continuing rebuilding our stockpile of missiles with the brand new missiles, replacing those on our ships, particularly starting with the first fleet. The quick reaction forces can stick around with their RIM 846, but the combat fleet that's actually fighting, oh whoops, god damn it, hit my hand on my desk, that's actually fighting in GL Virginis, they need the greatest missiles that we can equip on our ships. So they need the RIM 8100s. They need the the AIM 850s. That's what we're going to get. That's what they're going to have equipped on them. But yeah, so that's going to be it for this part. I will see you all next time. Quick reminder, if you want to stay up to date with the channel updates, I generally post on my Discord more often than anywhere else. So if you want to know what's going on with the channel, any changes to my recording schedule, streaming schedule when I get around to that, which by the time this video starts, I might get back into streaming. One of the main reasons I've held off on that is my current setup just does not have tons of space for one thing, but also I use a Wi-Fi connection right now because I don't have a hardline connection where my desk is currently located, but I'm supposed to be moving in late January to mid-February, maybe possibly late February at the latest. So by the time this video goes up, it will probably not be too far off, and I might have even already made the move. It just depends on when some final touch-up work can be finished. But yeah. And at least, in my new place, I'll be able to have a hardline connection to my computer. So I will probably end up streaming more often because I'll have that much more stable connection that a hardwired connection has over Wi-Fi. But yeah, if you want to support the channel financially, the easiest way to do that is Patreon or Streamlabs. Patreon if you want to do monthly, Streamlabs if you want to do one at a time, or not necessarily one at a time, but just sort of sporadic, random. I feel like giving you $5 type support. And if you go Patreon, you get some extra goodies, such as early access to videos. I'll admit I don't do a great job of maintaining my Patreon right now. That's largely just because I don't have supporters. And so I just can't be bothered to put in the effort on maintaining it. But obviously, if people did start supporting the channel financially via Patreon, I would actually, put in the effort to maintain it. Right now, I can't be bothered to do that because it's extra effort and there is zero gain for me putting in that extra effort right now. But yeah, so I'll see you all next time. Glory to the Republic.